On today's episode, I'll recap the Blackhawks' overtime loss to the Oilers, and we'll also break down top prospect Oliver Moore getting called up ahead of tonight's matchup with the Kraken.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can check me out on X at Jack Bushman 2, but make sure to follow my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey so you don't miss any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And I also have to let you know right off the jump that today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Go and download the Game Time app now, create an account, and then use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off with your first purchase. All right, happy Monday, everyone, and happy first episode here in the month of November, as believe it or not, the first month of the 25-26 NHL season is now came and went, and for the Blackhawks to come out of it with a 5-4-3 record, including Saturday night's game on November 1st against the Edmonton Oilers, I think we all have to be pretty happy about that, right? And you know what else we should all be pretty happy about? Is that top prospect Oliver Moore was just recalled by the Blackhawks ahead of tonight's matchup with the Seattle Kraken. I'm not exactly thrilled with the timing of this news bomb as it happened right after I got done recording today's episode. So kind of had to go and switch things up here now with this new news of Oliver Moore joining on with the NHL roster. Another promising piece of the Blackhawks' future is on the NHL scene, and that should have all of us even more excited than we've been seeing the young kids doing their thing early on in this campaign. And for more, while this probably was more so of a result of Jason Dickinson getting placed on injured reserve, he's now deemed week to week by head coach Jeff Blashill and has actually already returned to Chicago, even though there's still 4 more games in this road trip. He's already back in Chicago, rehabbing and getting checked out, trying to get healthy as soon as he can. But because Dickinson is now week to week and is going to be unavailable for the rest of the road trip, that would have left the Blackhawks with only 12 healthy forwards on their NHL roster. So they elect to call up Oliver Moore probably sooner than they would have liked. And just in comparison to Frankie Nazar, played in 21 games, I believe it was, with the Ice Hogs last year before getting that call up by the Blackhawks. Well, obviously Moore is only played in 9 games so far with the Ice Hogs. He's still looked the part in those opening 9 games and been arguably the best rookie outside of maybe his teammate Nick Lardis in the entire AHL so far this year, as Moore's tallied 6 goals and added 3 assists for 9 points in his opening 9 contests. Those 6 goals alone are good for 6th in the entire AHL. His 9 points also puts him inside the top 30 in the league in scoring. And then comparatively to the rest of the AHL rookies, Moore leads them with 6 goals. His 9 points are also tied for 4th. So it's been a sensational start to his first full professional season thus far. And while, the Blackhawks probably would have liked to give him a little bit more time with the Ice Hogs before this call-up, they were put in a little bit of a predicament with Jason Dickinson going down, but it definitely helps with how well Moore has played through those opening 9 games. That definitely gave Kyle Davidson in the front office, I'm sure, a little bit more confidence in recalling him so early in the season. And not only was Moore on the ice for the Blackhawks morning skate here in Seattle, which just wrapped up about 30 minutes ago now. I actually had an episode planned to drop just before the morning skate, as because the Blackhawks are on the West Coast, their morning skate is until 1:30 p.m. Central Time here. So just to let you all know, probably for Wednesday's matchup against the Vancouver Canucks, that episode will come out a little bit earlier on in the morning as opposed to me waiting until the morning skate wraps up and then doing the show, just because of the timing with the Hawks on the West Coast. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I will continue to do most of my game preview episodes once the morning skate wraps up. But Oliver Moore was participating in the morning skate today and is expected to be in the Blackhawks lineup, according to Coach Jeff Blashill. There weren't any forward lines or defensive pairing rushes at the morning skate, so the official lineup is to be determined, and I'll go and take a stab at it during segment 3 of today's episode, where I'll also get into some more information on this matchup with Seattle. But regardless of whether Moore is going to play the wing or the center ice spot, I'm guessing it's probably going to be the wing based on how they utilized him last year and also where he had been playing with the Ice Hogs so far this season. But regardless of those two positions, it's almost kind of in a similar sense to Frankie Nazar. They don't really need Oliver Moore to be a certain position. Obviously, they want Frankie to be a center. I think they want Moore to be a wing, but they just need him to be an impact player in all three zones, like he has been throughout his young career thus far at Minnesota with the Ice Hogs so far this season. And not only in terms of the planning from Kyle Davidson on how to handle Nazar and Moore, are there similarities to their first full professional seasons? Obviously, Nazar didn't crack the NHL roster out of camp last year. Moore wasn't able to do the same this year, despite both of them looking strong in the preseason and training camp. It's because of the patient approach from GM KD, and he wants to see these prospects go and thrive at the AHL level as opposed to just surviving in the NHL right off the jump. Well, not only did Nazar thrive last year ahead of his call-up and Moore been thriving as a point-per-game player ahead of his recent call-up here today, but also because of the way how they go about their business, using their pace not only for the offensive side of things, but defensively too. Both guys who are going to be staples of the Blackhawks penalty kill for a long, long time and just bring a solid, responsible defensive game to the table. I think that also led to Nazar getting called up early last year and definitely helps in, again, giving this front office confidence that, hey, Oliver's only played 9 AHL games and 18 professional games total in his career. I don't know if we want to call him up this soon. I think they feel more confident in doing so, that he can handle himself well in the NHL right here, right now, because of his defensive responsibilities and his two-way play. So exciting matchup for the Blackhawks here tonight with Oliver Moore expected to be in the lineup. Obviously, we got to see a little bit of him in the NHL late last year after he wrapped up his sophomore season with the University of Minnesota, wound up tallying 4 assists in those 9 games played with the Blackhawks, averaging right around 13 minutes and 30 seconds of ice time per game, playing mostly in a third line role. That's probably where I project him to make his season debut for the Blackhawks here this evening. But it's going to be super exciting to see what Oliver Moore has in store. Also, because so far in the AHL this year, his uptick in the goal scoring department, we've always known about his two-way play. We've always known about his blazing speed, called one of the fastest prospects that anyone has really ever seen, going back to his NHL draft year by elite prospects. That's obviously been on display at the numerous levels that he's played with over the last few years internationally to help Team USA win 2 World Junior Championships, helping Minnesota be one of the best teams in college hockey early on this year with the Ice Hogs, right? We know about his wheels, but the uptick in goal scoring that we've seen from Oliver Moore, albeit still in a pretty small sample size, 9 games, but to have 6 goals after only tallying 21 in nearly 80 games of NCAA action with the Golden Gophers for 2 years, that really caught me by surprise and honestly was something I wasn't expecting to see. His shot and the firepower that he has behind it has definitely taken a noticeable boost since I think even we last saw him on the NHL last year. I didn't really think Oliver Moore had that in his arsenal, but it's been a pleasant surprise to see so far during his time in the AHL with Rockford. We'll see if that shot and the offensive abilities can translate more than I think a lot of us expected on the NHL scene here during this call-up, because if it does, there's been a spot next to Connor Bedard on the left wing that's had a lot of rotations, a lot of players going through that door in these last couple of years. And I hinted not all that long ago, could Oliver Moore possibly be someone who gets a look up on that top line with Bedard and now Andre Burakovsky? Obviously, Ryan Green has fared well in that spot here as of late, but if Oliver Moore can do what he's been doing down with the Ice Hogs up here in the NHL, I know that's easier said than done, but I really didn't think he had that shot in his arsenal. So I'm excited to see if that's going to translate up here in the NHL during his first real NHL stint with the Chicago Blackhawks. Exciting to see that Oliver Moore is now up in the NHL. Unfortunately, it came at the cost of Jason Dickinson. But what I'm interested to see as well is if Oliver Moore fares well during this stint, does he wind up sticking around in the NHL for the long haul? Because remember, Ryan Green was someone that was initially expected to begin the season with the Rockford Ice Hogs, like Oliver Moore and like Nick Lardis. But Ryan Green has made the most of his opportunities, and he's stuck with the NHL roster through these opening 12 contests, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be going down anytime soon. Oliver Moore is now going to get that same opportunity where, yeah, it might be a tough decision for the Blackhawks front office numbers-wise whenever Dickinson does get fully healthy, but if he plays his part and he makes an impact with this group, might force the coaching staff into no other decision but keeping around for the majority of the season, or at least the extended future. And that should be a lot of fun to watch unfold right in front of our eyes, starting here tonight at Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. I'll get to a game preview here in just a moment, Blackhawks fans, but I was originally opening up today's episode with a recap of Saturday's 3-2 overtime loss to the Edmonton Oilers. I'm going to be getting to that here on segment 2 coming up in just a moment. But first, I got to show some love to one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. The NFL season is now past the midway point, and FanDuel is still making sure you're ready for every kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's super quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. With player props, same-game parlays, and more ways than ever to now get in on the action, are you ready to play? All you got to do is download the FanDuel app now, or you can easily go and check out FanDuel.com in order to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com or the FanDuel Sportsbook app to place your first $5 bet and get $300 in bonus bets when it wins. I also got to talk to you all real quick about Monarch. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, super easy to use interface that's both available on your phone and on your laptop. And Monarch does all of the heavy lifting for you, so you can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks any longer. Go and use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps at monarch.com, and you'll also get half off on your first year. Again, that's 50% off on your first year at monarch.com when you use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Per usual, before I get into segment 2, just a reminder, if you like what you're watching here today on YouTube or on a regular basis, please make sure to go and smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Thank you all again, as always, for the constant support, Blackhawks fans. Segment 2 on today's show, which was originally going to be segment 1 before the Oliver Moore news bomb. The lone game of the weekend for the Blackhawks, their second contest of their current 6-game road trip, came at Rogers Center on Saturday night against the Edmonton Oilers, and it was definitely a much improved performance from the Blackhawks compared to their last outing against the Jets, where they were a little shaky defensively and shot themselves in the foot a couple times too many, particularly against the Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Gabe Vilardi trio that really made them pay. I thought this was definitely a more structured defensive performance by the Blackhawks, one they really needed after, like I said, being shaky in Winnipeg to open up the road trip. And I thought they kind of grew as the game progressed. The third period definitely was their best period of the night, which really impressed me as well, because going into the second intermission, they were down a goal. The Oilers crowd, was not all that into it, considering Game 7 of the World Series was also being played on the Jumbotron, but still in enemy territory. And the Blackhawks not only wound up tying the game 2-2 in that third period, but they were the better team who was driving the play with the game in the balance. Just unfortunately couldn't find the back of the net more than once and put home that game winner. They led 9-6 in scoring chances at even strength in that third period and 4-1 in high danger chances as well. And like I mentioned, we're able to tie up the game and get at least 1 point for the first time here to open this road trip. Still going for that first win, though, as they will try to do so tonight in Seattle. Again, be sticking with me up until segment 3 as I'll preview that matchup here in just a moment. But on their game-tying goal in that third period, want to shout out a couple of different players for making it happen, one of which being Ryan Green, who without him winning that board battle down low and scrapping his way to that loose puck, this goal wouldn't have been generated by the Blackhawks. And I love to see Green continue to surprise me, at least, and look the part on the top line, even though I don't think this is going to change the narrative around him or anything. He's still going to be looked at as a third or fourth line center of the future, but has done his part well in these last 2 games, along with Connor Bedard and Andre Burakovsky. He wins that puck battle down low, which is something that Jeff Blashill has really been working on with him and wanting to see more from him. Wins that puck battle there, then finds Artem Levshinov at the right dot for a one-timer, and Burakovsky is in perfect position to put home the rebound and tie the game up 2-2. Love that play from Oliver Moore, and also love the play we've been getting from both Levshinov and Burakovsky here as of late, as both of them extended their respective point streaks to three games on this game-tying goal. Love to see the recognition from Levshinov there that he could be a threat in the offensive zone, and there was open space in front of him and crept down to that right dot to get a more dangerous one-timer off on Stuart Skinner. And then Burakovsky going to the dirty areas, cleaning up the loose change, scoring from right out in tight in front of the opposing netminder for the second consecutive game. Now, the finishes were in a lot different fashion, right? As against the Jets on Thursday, he went in between his own wickets to beat Connor Hellebuck. Not as fancy this time as he just naturally put home the rebound, but still, Burakovsky continues to start trending in the right direction in terms of meshing well with Connor Bedard, which I don't really think should be all that surprising considering this is his first year with the Blackhawks, coming in from a new team. It takes a little bit of time to, go and establish that chemistry and establish that connection with one another, but it's clearly starting to happen along with he and Bedard. Love to see that. Burakovsky now not only has points in 3 consecutive games, but has found the back of the net in 2 consecutive contests, and overall has 9 points in his opening 11 games with the Blackhawks. Love to see how much improvement he's had on that top line as the games have progressed along with Bedard. And speaking of point streaks, Bedard also extended his point streak to 4 games a little bit earlier on in the contest with a primary assist on Tyler Bertuzzi's game-tying goal on the man advantage from right out in front. 3rd goal of the season for Bertuzzi. Got to get him more opportunities on the man advantage in those greasy areas. And it was Bedard who found him with a perfect feed at the far post to go and tie up the game 1-1. That now gives Bedard points in 4 consecutive games and puts him up to 15, leading the team in that category through the opening 12 contests, 6 goals and 9 assists. And Bedard continues to be the driver of play for that top line, which, like they were on Thursday in Winnipeg, I thought they were the most effective trio for the Blackhawks in this game, in Edmonton as well. But it's not, while Burakovsky and Green have been a big part of that, it's still been Bedard who's been the most dangerous and the most threatening forward for the Blackhawks in back-to-back contests. And just to see his baseline continue to be raised here in his 3rd NHL season, where even in games the Blackhawks are losing, you still love to see him being their best player, being the most superior threat on the ice, and really playing in the offensive zone more times than not when he's taking his shifts. I really do think that baseline and the confidence that Bedard has played with, the consistency that he's had in his game here over, throughout the season thus far, but especially over the last week or two, continues to be noticeable. Burakovsky and Green definitely have helped that top line get cooking here as of late, but Bedard has really been the driving force behind it, which I love to see. And kind of the same thing for Frankie Nazar as well. This was a 2nd consecutive scoreless game for Nazar and the Hawks' second line. However, I did think it was another pretty strong performance from them at even strength. Had some good shifts in the offensive zone, mostly from Nazar. And again, his speed, his recognition just continues to give him so many chances. I love to see, again, just the consistency that these two are bringing as, young players. Bedard still only 20, Frankie Nazar 21 years old. In his first full NHL season, it's been very impressive, and maybe it's the night here tonight in Seattle that the second line finally breaks through, as they've done some good things in these last couple of games, but just haven't been able to get the finished product. Unfortunately, the big guns for the Blackhawks, Nazar and Bedard, just wound up getting outmatched a little bit by Connor Bedard and Leon Draisaitl. And it's not like either of those two lines for Edmonton really dominated throughout the course of the game. I thought Podkolzin, Draisaitl, and Roslovic were the best trio for the Oilers on the night, but they didn't absolutely go and dominate play at even strength when they were out there. But when they got their best looks, especially on the man advantage, they were able to capitalize. McDavid and Draisaitl wind up factoring in on all three of the goals that the Oilers scored on Saturday, including the overtime winner, where they were kind of had a man advantage as well. They struck for 2 power play goals in the second period, and then in overtime, the Blackhawks were hemmed into their defensive zone, and it just kind of felt like the experience and the poise of the Oilers ended up making the difference, because they were able to maintain possession for a long period of time. They also trapped Artem Levshinov out on the ice for an extended shift. He was absolutely exhausted there, and McDavid winds up finding Draisaitl. He feeds Bouchard for a one-timer that leads to the game-winning goal. Not really a lot that Spencer Knight could have done differently on that one, or either of the 2 goals that the Oilers got past him earlier on in the evening. Did like to see it was a bounce-back game from Spencer Knight after his worst showing of the season on Thursday in Winnipeg. Ended up stopping 27 of the 30 shots that he faced at Rogers Place. And even going back to Tuesday's win over the Ottawa Senators, he had a sub 900 save percentage in that game. So I really like to see him kind of find his structure as well, along with the Blackhawks defense in between the pipes. And they had a much better showing that unfortunately wasn't able to result in 2 points. Would have loved for them to get another goal there in that third period when they really had it going. But on the bright side, they do at least pick up their first point of the road trip. But after tonight's game against the Seattle Kraken, they will officially have hit the midway point of this road trip, and you definitely want to have at least one victory up on the board at that point. And coming up in just a moment, I'll dive through everything to know before puck drops at Climate Pledge Arena at 9 p.m. Central Time. But first, I got to talk to you all as well about Game Time. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is go and cheer on your team. But that's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. So go and take the guesswork out of buying your NHL tickets with Game Time. All you got to do is download the Game Time app now, create an account, and then use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps for $20 off on your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off with Game Time. All right, segment 3, the Blackhawks, as I've talked about, back in action tonight against the Seattle Kraken, with the Hawks still being on the West Coast. This is another 9 p.m. Central Time puck drop like Saturday's game was, but a big opportunity, I feel like, for the Blackhawks to get in the win column for the first time during their 6-game road trip. Already discussed Oliver Moore surprisingly joining the Blackhawks as he's been recalled from Rockford, while Jason Dickinson has unfortunately been placed on injured reserve. Oliver Moore was on the ice for the Blackhawks morning skate. Jeff Blashill said he expects him to be part of the lineup. However, we're not entirely sure precisely what the Blackhawks lineup is going to look like in terms of forward lines and defensive pairings, as they didn't go through line rushes at their morning skate. So not entirely sure who's going to be coming out of the lineup with Oliver Moore jumping in, but I wanted to go ahead and give it a stab before closing out today's episode. Up on the top line, I think we could probably expect to see Ryan Green, Connor Bedard, and Andre Burakovsky once again. While I do think eventually Ryan Donato should probably be put back up there, considering the chemistry that he established along with Bedard last year and how Bedard has raised his performance so far in his third NHL campaign, looking better and more improved than ever. I do think you want to return to that at some point if you're Jeff Blashill, but it probably doesn't come tonight because Ryan Green has just been really sharp up in that top line left wing spot. I think he's earned another opportunity along with Bedard, but maybe if they struggle tonight, wouldn't be surprised if Jeff Blashill kind of switches things up on the fly, especially if he's only going to be dressing 11 forwards once again, as he's done for the majority of time so far here this season. Bedard and Burakovsky, Bedsy's got a 4-game point streak. Burakovsky, the former Seattle Kraken, by the way, who, of course, was acquired by general manager Kyle Davidson in a trade here this summer. Would love to see him extend his point streak and get on the stat sheet once again against his former team. And in 3 career games against the Seattle Kraken, Burakovsky actually has 2 multi-point performances, while Bedard against the Kraken in his young career only has 1 point in 5 games played. So maybe Andre and that extra spark will help Bedard pick up a second career point, maybe even more against the Kraken here tonight to help extend both of their point streaks. The second line, I expect it to remain Teuvo Teravainen, Frank Nazar, and Tyler Bertuzzi. I know that they haven't found the back of the net in these last 2 games, but they have been, funny enough, on the right side of the analytics, and I have spent more time in the offensive zone than they have defending. But funny enough, through the opening 8-9 games, they did not have really good analytics together, but they were the more opportunistic bunch. They were converting when they were getting their high danger looks. So it's kind of weird how that has flipped over these last couple of games. But regardless, I've liked what I've seen from that trio. I know Bertuzzi has points in back-to-back games against the Kraken coming into this one, so hopefully he can help get the second line on the board here tonight after a couple scoreless showings in a row. The third line for the Blackhawks on Saturday in Edmonton was Ryan Donato, Colton Dach, and Ilya Mikheyev, which is really a trio that doesn't have a true center iceman of the group. Dach's not a center. Donato's not a true center. Mikheyev's not a true center. That's the predicament the Blackhawks are in now with Jason Dickinson being week to week. Their best defensive-minded center and probably their best true face-off man. I'm guessing this is probably where Oliver Moore is going to be, Blackhawks fans. I don't think maybe they do put him on the fourth line along with Nick Foligno and get him some extra shifts along with Bedard because there's only expected to be 11 forwards in the roster, in the lineup, and that usually leads to Bedard double shifting with the guys down on the fourth line. So maybe that is where they put Oliver Moore just to allow him to get some shifts with Bedard as well as some time in defensive situations in the bottom 6. I'm still going to guess, though, Oliver Moore, Ryan Donato, and Ilya Mikheyev being the third line for the Blackhawks tonight. I just feel like while it's a big ask for any of those 3 to play center ice, Oliver Moore has played center in his career for most of it up until he's reached the professional scene, and the Blackhawks seem to like him better out on the wing. Dach, playing the third line center spot on Saturday. He's not a true center iceman either. And I feel like Donato, as a grizzled veteran who has taken some draws throughout the course of his career and during his time with the Blackhawks so far, I feel like he's the most likely of the 3 to jump into that spot. But it's going to be very fascinating to see what the forward lines look like when the Hawks get on the ice for their pregame warmups. I'm going to guess Oliver Moore, Ryan Donato, and Ilya Mikheyev as the third line. Wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world, though, if Blashill just ran back the third line from Saturday of Donato, Dach, and Mikheyev. I'm guessing it's going to be Colton Dach and Nick Foligno down on the fourth line. Maybe Dach and Oliver Moore wind up switching spots on the third and fourth line. But regardless, I'm expecting the 2 healthy forward scratches with Moore now called up and playing. I'm guessing it's going to be Landon Slaggert and Sam Lafferty. Lafferty has been scratched in 8 of 9 games, I believe, coming into this one. He's only played once since the home opener way back on October 11th, which I know can't be easy for him, but just given the situation the Blackhawks are in, I don't really know who you're pulling out of the lineup consistently to have Sam Lafferty in there. And I kind of feel the same way about Landon Slaggert, right? And this was a discussion I had going into this year and why I thought, Slaggert was going to make the NHL roster, but I also think it's not the end of the world. While it would be obviously very tough for Slaggert, just considering the Blackhawks prospect pool and who they envision as part of the future, I don't necessarily know if Landon Slaggert is going to be one of those guys. And I definitely have, Colton Dock ahead of him in the pecking order, Oliver Moore obviously ahead of him in the pecking order, Ryan Green ahead of him in the pecking order as well. So just puts Landon Slaggert in between a rock and a hard place a little bit here, because you want a young guy, a player of his age, to be playing, but there's not enough spots to get him in the lineup consistently. So that's going to be a fascinating development, not only tonight to see if Slaggert does wind up being a healthy scratch, but moving forward, especially if/when the Blackhawks are able to get healthier in their forward group, right when, Mikheyev draws back in, Dickinson goes back out. It's been a little bit since they've had everyone healthy at the same time, which, isn't guaranteed to happen. It's the NHL. Injuries do happen a lot, but that's definitely interesting to see, because I just envision Slaggert now being a little bit of an odd man out of this forward group along with Lafferty. Defensively for the Blackhawks, don't really think there's going to be any changes. And by the way, I like that Jeff Blashill is really stuck with these same defensive pairings through these opening 13 contests. I feel like in years past, things have been tinkered with just a little bit too much, and I really do enjoy that Blashill has allowed these defensive tandems, mostly Vlasic, Rinzel, Grzelcyk, and Murphy, allowed them to get comfortable and remain with one another here during the early portion of the season. Expect Vlasic and Rinzel to be as the top pairing. Wyatt Kaiser and Artie Levshinov, who extended his point streak to 3 games on Saturday night, now leads all Blackhawks defensemen with 5 assists. His comfortability and how confident he's getting in his game, getting involved in the offensive zone, moving the puck well, and then also being more structured defensively and not having those like bozo plays or roller coaster rides defensively that we've kind of seen from him in the early portion of his season. Of his career, excuse me. I think he's definitely playing the best hockey of his young career right now, and it's been awesome to see the 20-year-old Levshinov really come into his own these last couple of weeks, playing sturdier defensively as I wanted to see, while also continuing to make an impact on the offensive side of things. Love what I've seen from Artem Levshinov in these last handful of games. And then Matt Grzelcyk and Connor Murphy rounding things out on the third pairing with big Louis Crevier, the leading goal scorer among all these defensemen, serving as the 7th defenseman. In between the pipes for the Blackhawks, it will be Arvid Soderblom. For the first time here during this road trip, he's set to be in net for the Blackhawks. It'll be his 4th start of the season. And this was something I did see coming in the episode that I was originally going to drop a couple of hours ago. Before the Blackhawks morning skate, I was projecting that Soderblom was going to get the start, not only because he hasn't played yet during this road trip, but also with how well Spencer Knight has played against the Canucks in his career, and they're coming up next on the schedule on Wednesday. I just felt like this was a pretty perfect opportunity to get Soderblom in between the pipes. Also, Knight in a start against Seattle last year at the United Center gave up 6 goals to Seattle, so felt like a good time to play Soderblom for a couple of different reasons there. Real quick, everything to know about the Kraken before the puck drops at 9 p.m. CT. They're 5-2-4 through their opening 11 games this season, so they only have 2 losses in regulation. However, they have lost more games than they've won so far this year, and they're a very defensive group, as Jordan Eberle and Jaden Schwartz are tied for the team lead in goals with 4. Schwartz is the only player on the Kraken roster to have reached double-digit points, and he only has 10. And the big reason why the Kraken have won 5 games and only have 2 regulation losses has been because of their defense and goaltending. Joey Daccord is off to a really good start. He's 5-1-3 and has played 9 of the Kraken's opening 11 games. He's set to be in between the pipes once again here tonight, and he's been good against the Blackhawks in his career with a 4-1-0 record, 1.82 GAA, and .930 save percentage. He's really been the backbone of the Kraken so far this season. They're 9th in the NHL in goals against. However, what I did find interesting is that for a team that's kind of relied on their defense thus far, the Kraken are 28th in the NHL on the penalty kill, under 68%. And they're also 31st in the league at the faceoff dot, one of the few teams who are ranked lower in that category than the Blackhawks, who, honestly, I need to give credit to, felt like they've handled themselves better and better each game at the faceoff dot. They're 24th in the league at the draw at 47% on the year. I just thought it was interesting for a team that has really gotten it done defensively this year, that they kind of are lackluster in those two categories. The Blackhawks are better than Seattle at the dot, better than them on the man advantage, better than them at the penalty kill. They've been a pretty good defensive group of their own right here through the opening 12 games. So again, just feel like if they can get a couple past Joey Daccord tonight, which has been a problem for them against him in these last couple of years, if they can get 3 or 4 past him tonight, I really like their chances of coming away with a win. Go and get one on the man advantage against this poor Kraken PK. Think it's a darn good opportunity for the Blackhawks to go and get that first win of their road trip and get some good momentum going into Vancouver, where they'll have a matchup against Lucas Reichel in the Canucks on Wednesday night. All right, that is going to take care of today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast, so you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes as soon as they're uploaded. Thank you all for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your day. For your second listen, go and check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, up until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Go and look at NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL, available on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Till next time, Blackhawks fans, go Hawks. Let's get a big 2 points here tonight in Seattle. See what kind of impact Oliver Moore can make with this team, or for however long he winds up sticking around in the NHL. Till next time, I'll see you on the next episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.